It's Monday, the 20th of August 2018, and welcome to Navigating Your Day. In Jinshin Jitsu, safety energy lock number 20 came into the universe meaning everlasting or eternity. And safety energy lock number 20 is located here on the frontal eminences of the forehead. So 20 is a 2, and this meaning of everlasting or eternity, my understanding of that is that when safety energy lock number 20 is open, then we have the perception of the everlasting eternity that is the essence of who we are. In other words, we then get connected to the true part of ourself that exists beyond our physical existence. So that would be considered to be the soul, for example. That part of us that is everlasting, that is limitless, that is not bound by the physical senses. And it's interesting that it's here on the frontal eminences, which is either side of what is known in cosmology, what is known as the third eye, and it's also the brow chakra. So the brow chakra is associated with the mind. It's about being able to expand the mind beyond the 5 senses. So my understanding is that is connecting to the higher mind. It's more our angelic nature. So when safety energy lock number 20 is open, then our minds are clear, and we can connect to this idea that there is a part of us that actually is eternal. 20 is, of course, a 2, and 2 is about balance. 2 is the number of nurture. 2 is the number about maintaining the balance between nurturing ourselves and nurturing other people. So when this energy is out of balance, then we run the risk of over-nurturing outside of ourselves or under-nurturing outside of ourselves and over-nurturing ourselves. 2 helps us to maintain the balance. 2 also helps us to maintain the perception of the balance of everything in this dualistic universe, that basically no situation, person, or event is ever one-sided. It cannot be happy or sad. It has to be an equal balance of both. And that is not something that we can automatically do. That's not a function of the lower mind, our egoic mind as we understand it. That doesn't just happen automatically. That is something that you have to practice to see. And the more you can see it, the more mastery you have over the events and the circumstances in your life. So that doesn't mean that seemingly negative events don't happen. It means that you can appreciate that within every negative event, there is an equal and opposite number of positive aspects. Or in every event that is challenging, there's an equal and opposite amount of support. In the same way in which when something seemingly amazing happens, you also have the immediate appreciation that within that amazingness, there is also awfulness, and it is balanced and equal. 20, which is a 2, is the number of nurture, as I said. It's the number associated with parenthood. It's the number associated with protection. It also is the number associated with being frightened of letting anything go, about feeling frightened of losing anything. So we can become overprotective. If we think about parenting, we can become smothering. We can become too attached to our children. We want to protect them too much, and in doing that, we keep them juvenile and we stop them from becoming independent. So that is what we have to guard against today. 2 is a water number. It is the number of the emotion. And of course, we've got a 2 in 2018 as well. So there's a lot of this water energy in the root of the life map today. And this is stabilized somewhat by the 8 from August. So a lot of being able to get in touch with our emotions, a lot of being in connection with our emotions, a lot of possibly feeling our emotions very strongly today is a possibility. But then that 8 from August helps us to be practical. The 8 from August says, okay, so 2 allows you to see that there's a balance, but practically, how do you do that? Well, practically how you do that is if you have an event or circumstance that you perceive to be more negative than positive or causing you more pain than pleasure, then what you do is you sit down, you take out a piece of paper, and you ask yourself how this seemingly negative situation benefits you in all of the major areas of your life. Now, in the beginning, it's going to be difficult, but once you start getting a bit of a momentum, the more you find, until eventually you actually get an insight in how this thing is serving you in your life. And that is actually the ability to be truly grateful. Well, that leads to the ability to be truly grateful for even seemingly negative circumstances in your life. And when you can be grateful for them, then you actually have more clarity, and that gives you insight on how best to deal with those, because you're not being pulled from one side to the next by this disordered emotion, effectively. 2s also help us to connect to our emotions, all right? And so the 8, again, practically would say, well, how am I going to do that? Well, one way that you can practically connect to your emotions is to actually become still and locate where it is in your body, because emotions are perceptions that have actually become physical. So something happens and you see it happening, or you experience it through your senses. That's a perception. And then you make a judgment about that. And if you judge it as being good, then you have a positive emotion. And if you judge it as being bad, then you have a negative emotion. So then the emotion is a follow-on of the perception, and that emotion is felt in your body. So when you're really nervous, you feel like you've got butterflies in your tummy. When you're extremely anxious, you can feel your heart pounding, or you feel a sudden rush of blood to your head, or you find if you get a shock, you feel the blood rushing out of your head. It is a physical. Emotions are felt physically. So practically what you can do is you can ask yourself, where am I feeling this emotion in my physical body? And then try and describe it. Does it have a color? Does it have a texture? Does it have a smell? Does it have a shape? Does it look like anything in particular? It doesn't matter what picture your mind actually gets. What matters is that you're paying attention to the emotion. And emotions, remember, want to be felt. They don't want to be ignored. They don't want to be suppressed. And they don't want to be fixed, because in actual fact, they cannot be fixed. They can only be felt. And that's the mistake that we make, especially if we're very rational and very much caught up in our minds. And this safety energy lock number 20 is right here. So it is in the mind. Okay. So my understanding is safety energy lock number 20 helps us to connect our intellect and our emotion in a way that actually is balanced and harmonious. And when that happens, then our will, our choices become more aligned with who we really are. So the hero today is the 3, and 3 is a bit of a fire number. It is a fire number. It's not a bit of a fire number. So it's bringing a bit of fire into the life map today. It is the strategist. It's the long-term planner. It's the one that sees the goals. It's the one that sets the goal and then sets the strategy in order to get that goal achieved. So if you are feeling very emotional and you are feeling sort of a bit all over the place, then what you want to do is you want to harness that energy of the 3, that creative energy of the 3. But it's easier to harness the creative energy of the 3 when you've allowed yourself to feel the emotion first. When you're trying to harness the creative energy of the 3 in an attempt not to feel the emotion, you are going to end up sabotaging yourself. And that is when you're more likely to start displaying the energy of the villain today. And the villain is the 5. So 5 is the analyst. 5 is the one that says feeling schmealing. It's actually, you can think about it and you can rationalize it and you can analyze it all out. The problem is that when 5 is in the villain position, you end up with potentially having analysis paralysis, right? And so you become so overly analytical, you become so caught up in your mind that you suppress your emotions, and that then very often shows itself as extreme anxiety. So today we may find that we have a conflict between wanting to be really analytical and very in the head, and the emotions becoming really overwhelming and wanting to pull us back down into I mean that in the best way, down into our bodies, into our hearts, and we have to honor both parts. So remember, emotions want to be felt, they do not want to be fixed. Safety energy lock number 20 is located on your little finger. So if you hold your little finger, you're harmonizing the heart and small intestine organ function energy. You are bringing the analytical energy of the small intestine and the feeling energy or that joy of the heart, and you're bringing them into harmony. So you're bringing that head and heart function into alignment in a way, all right? You also are, it's helping us to connect to that heart energy. So it's helping us to connect to our intuition. And the attitude associated with the little finger is trying to. When we're trying too hard, we're trying to analyze it, we're trying to suppress it, we're trying to pretend we're okay when we're not okay, we're trying to pretend that we are these left-brain, logical, rational beings that actually don't need emotions, or that emotions are somehow less worthy of being acknowledged than thinking and analysis. Holding the little finger stops us from pretending. It gets us in connection with our authentic selves, and it stops us from trying too hard. It essentially stops us from comparing and competing. It makes us realize that we are enough, and it helps us to bring that balance between the constant doing and the being, all right? And that would be another form of the head and the heart. The head is about what we need to do. The emotions are more about how we need to be. And holding the little finger helps to bring a balance between those two functions. I hope you have an amazing Monday, and I'll speak to you again tomorrow.